First at 5, a cold case finally solved nearly 34 years after a young woman was murdered.
So the FBI working with the GBI using some brand new technology to finally bring peace to the family of Stacey Lyn Chahorski. 11 Alive's Caitlin Ross is live at the GBI headquarters to explain how the victim's own family members actually helped solve this case decades later. Caitlin?
Ron, the GBI tells me this is a historic case. It's the first time in the country that the GBI has used forensic genealogy to identify not only the victim, but the killer. The photograph Special Agent Joe Montgomery has of Stacey Chahorski is old, photocopied in black and white.
It was overwhelming.
But to the agent who worked her case without knowing her name or identity for nearly a decade, this photograph colored in so much of what he was missing.
As an agent, you live with these cases, so.
Stacey Chahorski was 19 years old when she went missing in Dade County, Georgia in 1988. A body was found in December of that year. In 2005, the DNA was entered as Jane Doe into the missing persons database. In 2015, her murder was assigned to the cold case unit. In March of this year, Agent Montgomery finally got to call Stacey's family and tell them she had been identified through forensic genealogy 33 years after her death. Late last month, her killer was identified the same way.
I spoke with Stacey's mother last week to let her know that we'd found who the killer was.
Today, law enforcement identified the killer as Henry Fredrick, who went by Haas and drove a truck all over the Southeast. He also worked as a stunt driver in South Carolina.
He was killed in a vehicle accident in Myrtle Beach Speedway and burned to death.
Weiss died before he could face justice for killing Stacey. He died 23 years before Stacey was ever identified.
Weiss had a living family member who was interviewed, cooperated, and a DNA match was confirmed.
Forensic genealogy uses the DNA from the suspect or the victim's living relatives, but Agent Montgomery says it takes investigators to make the connections.
It's almost like a tree, and you're working your way back towards the trunk.
In this case, he says the limbs of that tree led back to Henry Haas Weiss and Stacey Chahorski. They created this photograph.
So when this finally comes through, it's just like, wow.
And it is unusual for cold cases to be solved in this way. They have to meet a long list of criteria before the test is run because those tests are expensive and they're not a sure thing. But as technology gets better, GBI expects more and more cases will be solved this way. And they say they won't stop until they continue to solve them all.